Yo, what is up, y'all? My name is Robert Donaldson, and welcome back to a new edition of Rob's Best Bets. And in this episode, we are obviously talking about college football Saturday here in Week 13. Crazy that I'm saying Week 13 out loud because, man, the season feels like it just started, and now we're already talking about, what's going to happen here in a few weeks when the College Football Playoff Committee ends up getting together and finalizes this thing. It's just crazy to think that we're already at that point. We're already having these discussions. We're already talking about the Heisman race and all these other awards. And when you're looking at the slate here on Saturday, man, we're going to have an entirely new perspective potentially on that college football playoff landscape after it's all said and done. And I'm excited to talk about these picks. But first, we obviously have to shout out today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, who, again, if you haven't gone over there and signed up already using promo code ROBDFB, you're missing out because you've got NHL, you've got NBA, NFL, college basketball, college football. Heck, you've got UFC. Obviously, John Jones just fought this past weekend. It was a great event. And when you're looking at all these different sports and all these different events going on, you've got daily fantasy, you've got daily pick'ems, and if you're not familiar with those spaces, make sure you're following me over on Twitter/X at RobDFB, and heck, I'll be your guide, through getting to know that type of space. But for all that being said, y'all, I'm ready to jump into these college football picks. All right, first up, we are taking a look at a matchup between Ole Miss and Florida, and this is a great matchup because Florida, as of late, especially as of late, has been playing really great football under DJ Lagway. The one game that they really didn't show out or perform well in was against Texas when DJ Lagway was injured and out of that game with a concussion. And when you look at this matchup going up against Ole Miss, do I think Florida's going to be able to move the ball? That is really the question because I do think Florida's defense at home is going to be able to stifle Ole Miss. It's just a matter of can Florida score points? And I tend to think they can score enough points in this matchup to cover 10.5 points here. So let's go ahead and take the 10.5 points for 3.5 units, and for an additional half unit, let's go ahead and sprinkle on that first half money line here as well. Next up, we have the game of the entire week, not only in the Big Ten, but across the country. Everybody's talking about it for a number of different storyline reasons, and when you're looking at this game between Indiana and Ohio State, obviously, the horseshoe is the horseshoe. This is a very tough place to go to and win at. Now, at the same time, everybody's telling Indiana that they're overrated. Everybody's telling Indiana right now that they can't compete on the level of the top 5, despite the billing of a top 5 rating. And for that reason, there's a couple different angles you can take here. You can say maybe the spotlight's going to get Indiana and really bite them, especially if they start slow. Or you can look at it from another perspective of, man, they've been getting told they can't do something all week long. They're going to get up and be ready to go and fire on all cylinders. And to be honest, I tend to think it's going to be the latter. I think Indiana has some gamers on this team. They have a lot of veterans. They have a great head coach that I know is going to get them into a good mental state. And for that reason, I say we take the 13.5 points here for 3 units. And for an extra half unit, I say we take a first half money line stab here as well. All right, next up, we are going back to back in the Big Ten Conference. This time, we are taking a peek at a game between Northwestern and Michigan. And man, oh man, this is a big game for Michigan. They probably hoped that it wouldn't be a big game for Michigan as Ohio State waits on deck. But the reason why it's a big game is because Michigan is currently 5-5. If they lose this game and go into Ohio State at a 5-6 record, they are probably not reaching bowl eligibility in Sharon Moore's first year as head coach, and also their first year, obviously, defending that national championship. And I think that would be a big dent. I know it doesn't seem like a big thing in the grand scheme of things, but I think it kind of is, because this is where you have to really show some promise here on the back end of a season and pound a team like Northwestern that I think is going to have a really tough time moving the football in this game. So let's go ahead and lay those 10 points here for 3 units for our third bet here on Saturday. All right, next up, we are once again staying in the Big Ten Conference in the same time window, and we are going out to Nebraska, where we have the Badgers traveling to the Cornhuskers. And this is another, game of two programs that didn't really have the seasons that they wanted to have. And once again, Nebraska is a team fighting for bowl eligibility at this point, where, they started so hot and then just kind of immediately faded down the stretch. Dylan Raiola has looked pretty awful. Him branding himself as Patrick Mahomes is probably one of the biggest scams of the NIL era that we've seen so far. Now, at the same time, Wisconsin on the other side has been a mess. Offensively, defensively, from a special teams perspective, they have been all over the place. And traveling to Nebraska in a game that Nebraska definitely wants to win, I think they're pretty much up against it here. So let's go ahead and lay the 2.5 points here with Nebraska for 2 units for our fourth bet here on Saturday. All right, in this next game, we've got a really fun one on our hands between Army and Notre Dame. And obviously Notre Dame has a top 6 billing coming into this matchup against Army. But Army, on the other side, they're inside the top 20 in the college football rankings. And certainly this is going to be their Super Bowl, because if they win this game, they could potentially win out as well and make the college football playoff. Crazy to think about, and they've got a great roster this year. I absolutely love Todd Monken. I also love a guy like a Ken Nuamatalolo, who coached at Navy for a long time and had a great, track record there and a great tenure there before being just inappropriately ousted from that university. But Todd Monken, man, hats off, because they're playing a style of ball that can't be replicated, or I would say can be replicated, but just isn't replicated across this sport. And they are doing it at such a high level. It is definitely legitimate in terms of how they're finding success. And they've got a quarterback in Bryson Daly, who I think somebody coined it as he is basically Captain America once he found the serum. That is a great way to describe him, because Bryson Daly is a horse to bring down. He's nimble, he's fast, he's athletic, he's physical, and they're going to be ready to bring it in this game. And on the other side, I think Notre Dame is going to be playing a very ground and pound style of ball here as well. And all of those things kind of scream to me that the time of possession is going to be going off the clock fast. This clock is going to be constantly moving. There's not going to be a lot of incompletions. And for that reason, looking at an under of 44.5, I am so bought in on it. So let's go ahead and take that under of 44.5 points here for 4 units here on Saturday. All right, next up, we've got a matchup here between Marshall and Old Dominion, and I think this is a great G5 matchup here. Old Dominion last week came up just short of winning against James Madison, who I think James Madison is just alive for this college football playoff, much like, a UNLV. They're in a very similar spot, with those sorts of teams in that tier, especially if something does happen to Boise State down the stretch, or something does happen to Army, this week against Notre Dame. And when you're looking at Old Dominion here, I do think that they are a good enough team to beat a team like Marshall, who I think is a little bit of a lesser version of that James Madison squad. So let's go ahead and lay those 2 points here with Old Dominion at home for 3 units here on Saturday. All right, for our last bet of the night, we are jumping all the way to the 10:30 p.m. Eastern time window. I know, this is a very late game. I'm probably going to be passed out by halftime in this one, but at the same time, it's a great game. So I'm actually, I revised that statement. I am definitely staying up for Colorado State and Fresno State. And this is a matchup between two teams that are actually going to be in the Pac-2, Pac-8, or Pac-12. I don't even know what they're calling it next year, but these are going to be conference foes in a different league next season. And when you're looking at this particular matchup, man, Fresno State is one of those squads that I think has run into some unlucky spots this year, and I think they're a lot better than, just a barely 500 record type team. And for that reason, I think Fresno State is going to be ready to go at home to beat the team that is kind of gunning for that Mountain West title shot. So let's go ahead and lay the 2.5 points here with Fresno State for 3 units for our final bet here on Saturday. All that being said, I really want to thank you guys for checking out today's video, and definitely drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below. I love you guys. You guys have been showing love on this series all college football season, and I can't thank you enough. And hey, let's go out there. Let's have a great weekend of college football and college hoops. And as always, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.